It's a law most of us are familiar with. All sex offenders have to put their names in a registry before they get out of prison.
But Ted on your side found out it's not so clean cut for sex offenders in the military. Investigative reporter Chris Horne is looking at just how easy it is for those offenders to evade detection. Chris?
Yeah, Tom and Nicole, a sex offender convicted while in the military can re-enter civilian life without first registering on a database. Sure, they have the duty to register after they're released from military prison. But as we've discovered, that doesn't always happen. Some say the process of military justice needs critical change even before registration becomes an issue.
Here's how a member of Congress wants the system to work when military sex offenders have completed their sentence.
So registration would take place by those who are imprisoned before they are released.
Right now, military sex offenders have 3 business days after release to register. Scripps News researched more than 1,300 convictions upheld on appeal. Nearly 250 of those sex offenders never registered at all. They're lurking somewhere, evading detection.
They were roaming around in civilian society with no notification to anyone in the community that they in fact may be living right next door.
If it's impossible for your employer, your neighbors, your community to know that there's a sex offender here that, hey, has come to volunteer at the elementary school today.
Harvey Bryant spent years prosecuting sex criminals and says they're notorious repeat offenders. He says the military has resisted efforts to register them before release. The Defense Department says it fully complies with the law requiring sex offender registration. But the problem is that law doesn't give the military jurisdiction to enforce registration prior to an offender's release. And who gets to decide whether sexual assault cases even get tried? Critics say that vital step in the process needs to be changed.
And so I knew that we had a major task in front of us.
Bryant was part of a blue ribbon panel, both civilian and military, that examined that process. The majority concluded that the chain of command is the appropriate authority to call for a court-martial. But it was a major conflict among the panel members.
I realize it's different from the model that we're accustomed to in civilian jurisdictions, but the military is different. And I think commanders are completely equipped to do that. They have legal advice that's well qualified.
And it was just difficult for him to see that the system in which he had spent years was somehow flawed.
He was too close to it?
That's what I felt. I felt he and some of the others.
Keep in mind, every branch of the service already has experts in military law. So why not let JAG prosecutors make the call as to which cases go to court-martial? That would align the military system more closely with the civilian system. But even Houck, who is a former judge advocate general himself, thinks that commanders should remain part of the process.
There was no significant evidence that in jurisdictions where commanders had been removed from the process that it made any difference whatsoever.
Congressman Scott Ridgel of Virginia Beach supports the chain of command system. He just completed 2 terms on House Armed Services. He says the military has come a long way in a short time when it comes to handling sexual assault.
It is not the same law that we had 2 and 3 years ago.
In the past couple of years, the Department of Defense has made changes to answer the demands for reform. Among them, removing the statute of limitations on many sex crimes, free legal counsel for victims throughout the process, less focus on minor victim infractions such as marijuana use and underage drinking, and better cooperation with U.S. Marshals to track down unregistered offenders. Now, with courts-martial, when JAG attorneys and commanders disagree, the case gets reviewed by the secretary of that military branch. But that doesn't satisfy Speer and Bryant. They still want to remove chain of command.
That this is a problem that's not going to get fixed unless we change the law.
And when it comes to registration, Ridgel would like to see the military sync up with the FBI database. Speer and Bryant want to make registration airtight, mandatory for offenders before they're released.
Now, in the end, none of this is going to happen unless the military wants it to happen. Let's be very clear about it.
Too strong of an influence.
They really call the shots.
And the DOD says the military takes sexual assault very seriously and categorically does not condone the heinous behavior of convicted sexual offenders. Spear will introduce legislation in the coming weeks to make sex offender registration mandatory before release. And just last Thursday, North Carolina Senator Richard Burr introduced a similar bill. We ran nearly 250 unregistered military sex offenders through social media and internet searches. Some had committed their crimes while based here, but none we were able to track currently lives here. But we weren't able to find them all. Chris Horne, 10 on your side.
Now, have you seen a waste of taxpayer money, acts of corruption, or abuse of power? We want to hear from you. Call 10 on your side, the investigation hotline at 757-673-5310, or send our team an email at 10onyourside@wavy.com. Be sure to include a summary of your story and a way we can get in touch with you.